You ever get that feeling that your brain just isn't playing by the rules of, well, math? Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating puzzle about how we make decisions, but we're going to look at it from a totally unexpected angle.
I mean, think about it. It's this weird paradox that we've all experienced. Why are we so excited about a one in a million shot, like winning the lottery, but we get all stressed out about a project that has a 99% chance of success? It just doesn't make logical sense, does it? But maybe, just maybe, our brains aren't playing a game of logic at all. Maybe it's something else entirely.
I mean, just look at these numbers side by side. On one hand, you have a probability that's basically zero, and it sparks all this hope. On the other, you have a failure probability that's also basically zero, and it causes all this anxiety. The maths just doesn't line up with the feeling, right? And that gap, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we have to kind of shift our perspective. We need to take off our classical logical glasses and put on a new pair, a quantum pair.
And that's really the big idea here. Our minds aren't calculators just crunching numbers. It's more like they're a quantum system. It's not about the raw odds, it's about how all these different things, our hopes, our fears, our dreams, all interact with each other, kind of like waves in the ocean or, in the quantum world.
All right, so before we get into the weird stuff, let's set a baseline. Let's talk about objective reality. In quantum mechanics, there's something called Born's rule. And really all you need to know is that it's the rule that gives you the straight-up mathematical probability of something happening. No feelings, no drama, just the cold, hard facts. That's our ground truth.
But here's the thing. We aren't just objective calculators, are we? Our brains throw another ingredient into the mix: interference. Just imagine your feelings, that soaring hope of winning, or that sinking fear of failing. Imagine them as actual waves. Well, these emotional waves crash into and mix with the wave of objective reality, and they actually change how we see the odds. So let's put this into practice. Let's go back to that lottery ticket. This is a perfect example of how we can take a tiny, tiny possibility and just crank up the volume. So if you look at the raw numbers, the chance of winning is, well, it's pretty much zero. Any logical calculator would just say, nope, forget about it. But our minds do something really amazing with that little number. That feeling of, what if I won? That whole daydream, that's its own wave. And when that wave of expectation overlaps with a tiny little wave of probability, they build on each other, they amplify. That's what's called constructive interference. And suddenly, that almost impossible chance feels real. It feels possible. It feels way bigger than the numbers say it is. This is such a cool way to think about it. It's like a tunnel effect for our minds. You know how in quantum physics, a particle can sometimes just pop through a solid wall it shouldn't be able to cross? Well, our brain does that too. It sees the massive wall of impossible odds, and it just tunnels right through it to imagine what success feels like. Okay, so that's the upside, but let's flip this on its head. What happens when these waves work against us? This is what happens all the time in business, especially when a project looks like it's a slam dunk. So picture this. You're working on a big project. All the data says it's a go, 99% chance of success. Logically, you should be feeling pretty great about that. But there's that 1%, that tiny little sliver of what could go wrong. And somehow it just feels huge. And this is the dark side of wave interference. It's called destructive interference. That little wave of anxiety, that 1% what if it fails, it's like it crashes into that giant 99% wave of success. And instead of building it up, it cancels it out. It just flattens our confidence and makes the risk feel way, way bigger than it actually is. And this isn't just about feeling anxious. This has serious real-world consequences, especially in business. We get super risk-averse. We start looking for a 100% guarantee, which, let's be real, almost never exists. And what happens? We might end up passing on an amazing opportunity, all because we were focused on that tiny chance of failure. So with all of this in mind, let's go back to that lottery ticket one more time. Is buying it really as irrational as it seems on the surface? I mean, if you're just a calculator, then yeah, it looks pretty dumb. But what if we're not just buying a mathematical chance? What if we're buying something else entirely? Think of it this way. The second you buy that ticket, you're in what physicists call a superposition. You are both a winner and a loser at the same time, right up until the moment they call the numbers.
So what you've actually paid for isn't the win itself, it's the possibility. You've bought a few days of that what if feeling. And this is where the two worldviews collide. A classical economist would look at the expected value and say, that's irrational. But from this quantum, or you could say energy perspective, it's a totally different calculation. The question becomes, is the feeling of hope, the fun of daydreaming, worth the couple of bucks you spent? If the happiness you get out of it is more valuable than the cost, then maybe it's a perfectly rational purchase for you. So this is all fascinating, but what do we do with it? How can we actually use this? Well, the idea is to become what's called a meta-observer. That means being able to step back and see both things at once, the cold hard numbers and the emotional waves that are swirling around them. And there's a pretty straightforward four-step way to do this. First, you just acknowledge reality. What are the actual odds? Then second, you recognize your own ways. You ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Is this hope? Is this fear? Third, and this is the most important part, you choose. You get to decide. Am I going to ride this wave of what if because it motivates me? Or do I need to stick to the objective facts right now? And finally, you tune your mind. You make a conscious choice to shift your perspective in a way that helps you, whether it's in business or just in life. I think this quote really nails it. It flips the whole idea from just passively hoping for a miracle to actively using that hope. It's saying, hey, what if you could use that 1 in a million hope as fuel? You can interfere with your own reality, motivate yourself to do the work, and actually start to change the real-world probability of success. It's about turning hope from a fantasy into a strategy. So that really brings us to the final question, and this one is for you to think about. Now that you know your own hopes and fears are literally changing how you see the world, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to let fear cancel out your best opportunities? Or are you going to use hope to power your biggest dreams? How are you going to tune your wave of expectation?